Let's do a little bit of refactoring. Right now we're passing two parameters to both the ball and the paddle. We're passing the game width and the game height. If we're going to pass more parameters, like the ball might need to know where the paddle is, we're starting to just chain on more and more parameters to these constructors. That is a sign that things need to be refactored and cleaned up a bit. So let's take care of that. Let's go ahead and create a new file. We'll call it game.js. Export default class game. Alright, so this guy is going to be in charge of managing all this for us. So let's go to index.js. Let's get rid of the ball, the paddle, and the input handler, and let's move it out to this new class. So let's give it a constructor. We're going to need to pass it the game width and the game height. So right here we'll say this.gameWidth equals game width, and this.gameHeight equals game height. Alright. Now instead of passing the ball and the paddle the game width and game height, we'll just pass it an instance of this. Let's move this out into a new function. We'll call it the start function. So when we're ready for our game to start, we will instantiate these objects. We'll have our ball, we'll have our paddle, and we'll have our input handler. Now let's go ahead and import these guys. So we have our paddle, input handler, and ball. Now let's refactor our paddle and ball class. Instead of taking game width and game height, we're just going to take the game object. Our game width will be our game.gameWidth. Our game height will be game.gameHeight. Same thing for our paddle. We'll just take in a game object. Game.gameWidth, game.gameHeight, and this needs to know the game.gameWidth as well. Alright, now let's create our game object. Game equal new game. Pass it the game width, pass it the game height, game.start. That'll instantiate it, and we need to import it. Alright, next we have this game loop trying to update and draw our objects. So let's take this out. And what if we just said game.update and game.draw? Those functions don't exist yet, so let's take care of that. So we'll do an update and a draw function. Now what we had before is we had paddle update, paddle draw, so let's just move these around. So update, we're going to update this paddle, and then we're going to draw the paddle in this function. Same thing with our ball. Let's update the ball, and let's draw the ball. Next we need to know the delta time, so let's just pass it in. And let's pass in our context. Let's go back to index.js and we'll pass in the delta time and the context. Now let's take a look at our errors here. The paddle and ball don't exist on the object, so let's just change this to this. There we go, we're right back to where we started. Now as we make more and more objects, such as all the bricks, we don't want to have to say this.brick.update. We're just writing the same thing over and over again. So let's clean this up a little bit. Let's do this.gameObjects. This is going to be an array. We could just say here this.ball this.paddle. And then in here, instead of doing each of these, we can just say this.gameObjects for each object, object.update delta time. Oh, because we need to remove these guys. Same thing with draw. This.gameObjects for each object, object.draw ctx. So now any object we make, all it needs to do is have an update and a draw method, and we can just add it here. So if we add 40 bricks, we just add the 40 bricks to this array, and the rest of this game class takes care of it automatically for us. So a quick review. Our index.js file just starts a new game by instantiating a game object, telling it to start. And then in our game loop, we clear our screen, and then we tell the game to update and draw. And our game class, it now passes its own instance to the objects so that they can get any information they need. So the ball can get information as to where the paddle is located on the screen. Then we just put all the game objects into an array, and we have an update and a draw function that handle updating and drawing all of our game objects in our world.